Hello YouTubers and welcome to a new video of Arepas for dinner. So in today's video I'm gonna talk a little bit about the Czech language, and that's because I've been doing TikToks all in Czech. Don't go check them out, they're horrible. A lot of people started to asking me questions about what's the deal with the Czech language, why is it so hard? So I'm gonna just explain many things, and this video is gonna be divided in between: 1, what is Czech language? 2, why is it so hard? Because it is hard. 3, just fun facts or funny words, and I'm gonna be looking a little bit down here because I have there all the info I need for today. First of all, disclaimer, yeah, I've been learning Czech. I tried to learn Czech for 6 weeks about a year and a half ago. I learned Czech for another 6 weeks this year. It was supposed to be 6 months, but 5 months. But then, coronavirus happened and my classes got canceled. They moved them online. I didn't continue, whatever. The thing is that I've been studying for a total of 12 weeks, but I had exposure to Czech as a language for, 5 years. How long I've been with my husband? 5 years, and living in the Czech Republic too. So I've had a lot of exposure to it, and anyway, I cannot keep a conversation. Okay, so let's start by what is Czech language. Czech language is a Slavic language. So if you know, you have Germanic languages that are German, English. Then you have Romantic languages or Latin languages, that is Italian, French, Spanish. You have Arab languages, and you have Slavic, and the Slavic languages are the ones that are Russian, Czech, Slovak, Croatian. Czech and Slovak are almost the same language, but not completely. It's Spanish from Latin America and Spanish from Spain. It's the same language, but we tend to conjugate sometimes differently. We say different words that other people might not understand. It is to Russian as Portuguese to Spanish, for example. So it's there. You might be able to catch a few words, and if you go study one or the other, if your base is Czech or Russian, it's very easy to learn the other one because they're all Slavic languages. It is considered a Group 3 language. What is a Group 3 language? A Group 3 language is a language that requires around 720 hours to have a basic understanding and communication level. 720 hours of studying. That's a lot. It's almost double than a one-level language. What's a one-level language? Everything from English or Spanish, not from other languages, but from the perspective of English and Spanish. A level 1 language can be Spanish, English, French, Italian. Then a level 2, there's other languages. In level 3, you have Czech, you have Finnish, Hebrew, Turkish. To learn Czech, you need 720 hours to learn it, and that would be around 3 months every day, 90 days, 8 hours a day, non-stop, to learn the basic of the language. So it is not a simple language, and take in consideration that it requires around, I think it's 20 to 40% more when you do it online. So it requires a lot to learn it because it's not a simple language. And I'm going to explain why it is not a simple language. So why is Czech so hard? Why, right? I mean, there's so many expats living in the Czech Republic, and we're unable to speak the language. And you see so many expats living in Spain that after 2 months of Erasmus, they're already shooting words here and there. Not the same happening with Czech. Number 1 is the nouns. If you don't know anything about grammatics, doesn't matter, I'm gonna explain you. The nouns are the words of the things. For example, this is a cell phone. So the nouns are the easier words in Czech because they are the most similar to any other language like English or Spanish. Not all of them, but they're easier to pronounce. In general, I'm just generalizing, but you have the televise is the television, or you have they're easier to pronounce. You have words like pan, that means sir, or you have words like okno, that is window. They're, in my opinion, easier to pronounce. So why we cannot just learn all these nouns and just talk like me, televise, Because Czech have something called declinations. So declensions, I don't know why I keep calling them declinations, but they're actually called declensions, and it has 7 of them. What declension mean is that the word changes depending on when it's being used. In English and in Spanish, when you have a word like a phone is always a phone. You never say phona or phony, or it's phone, right? And if it's plural, it's phones with an S. Well, in Czech, no. In Czech, you can have a word that has like the word pan that I told you it means sir. So the word pan has 7 other words that are also pan, but in a different situation. I'm going to explain this. When you want to say the sir, you say pan. But when you want to call the sir, you don't say pan, you say pane. And when you say that something is in the sir's desk, you say panovi. So each word, each noun, each banana, pan, fridge, whatever, it has 7 ways of saying it. And then it has another 7 ways because of the plural. It's not adding an S, it's a different termination. That makes that per word, you actually have 14 words to learn. And those are supposed to be the easier ones. Then we go to the verbs. The verbs are way harder to pronounce. They tend to be way older words. They're words that are much more Czech, much less influenced by pop culture or anything else. And those words are very hard to pronounce, very hard to memorize, in my case at least. But the conjugation is very easy. The conjugation in Czech is very easy. Past tense, you just add like an L. I'm going to put a very easy verb that is to study is studovat, because it's very simple. So when you say past tense, you say like studovala isem. You always say like studoval or studovala, and then isem or sesh, depending on if it's you or somebody else. But it's not that hard. It's just an L. And in future, you just add the word budu. Not to all of them. There's so many exceptions, but in general. So you would say like budu studovat. So it's not that hard. The problem is the verbs per se, because studovat is easy, but then you have like říkat, and you have odpočivat, and you have lyžovat, vařit, that is to cook. The verbs are pretty much like very Czech, excepting a few as well. But for me, it was very, very hard to learn the verbs. And they have like, several verbs for the same thing. Like when you go somewhere, it depends if you go by car or you go by food. But yeah, they have different, they have sometimes like more verbs to describe the same thing that you would say just with one, and that makes it a little bit pronunciation to me. And I think that's because I've been exposed to the Czech language for like 5 years through my husband and his family. Pronunciation, I don't find it that hard, but I do find that Czech people get quite impressed when I speak Czech, because they say your pronunciation is pretty good. So I guess a lot of expats have a problem with pronunciation. Czech, you write it as you read it, because it used to have Cyrillic. Those are like the Russian letters many, many, many years ago, like 200 years ago or more, maybe 300, I don't know. And they changed it to the alphabet of the Western countries. And with that alphabet, they pretty much make it as you read it, as you write it. So once you learn the sounds of every vocal and every syllable, and if you read it properly, that's it. To read it is pretty, for me, I think it's quite okay, but they do have some letters that are like hard to pronounce. Like the D is more like a D, and the T is more like a T. They have this like, it sounds like baby to me. And then they do have an R with a thing on top that is pronounced R, 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 R. So it's something in between like an R and an S. That one is hard to pronounce. It wasn't hard for me, but I know it's hard for a lot of people. For me, what was hard was CH, that is pronounced like It's hard, you see. It's the Spanish J. So it's like when you say the word reshija, I'm unable to say ja at the end strong. I say reshija, because Venezuelans don't have the Spanish J. We actually have a very soft J. So we don't say like jamon, we say jamon. So it's always like this super soft J, and that makes it hard for me to pronounce the Czech CH. So now we've covered nouns, verbs, pronunciation. Now it comes the Czech from Prague has a lot of slang. And I know many other cultures have much more, but anyways, when you go learn Czech, they always teach you the proper Czech. And I understand the reason why. But for example, in my case, I'm not working in Czech, and I pretty much don't need my Czech for working right now or for anything official. I needed much more to have conversations with people. And even though I've been learning for so long, I tend to understand much better the news than my friends. And I'm so against that. I think it's way easier to start colloquial and then go formal than to start formal and then go colloquial, in my opinion, especially if you're not planning to work in that language. So Czechs, especially in Prague, they have a lot of slang. They use a lot of diminutives. For example, even I think like Škoda car has a diminutive. If you know it, if you're Czech and you're watching this, let me know down below because it has. Then like in Prague, mleko, that means milk, they call it mliko. Bratra, that is like brother, they call it like braho. And sestra, they call it, that is sister, they call it segra. So like that, many things. And it starts to be kind of confusing to have conversations with them. The final one about Prague, especially the accent of Prague, is two things. They speak extremely fast and they do not have intonation. So the only intonation I find in the Czech of Prague is in one phrase that is dobrý den, that is hello. It's the only phrase that is like dobrý den. People never say dobrý den. That doesn't exist. It's always singing. But that's the only word. After you take dobrý den out, they literally speak so flat. I've never seen any language that is so flat in the way of speaking. To the point that I remember having a conversation with my husband on accents and how we do have like intonations in words and we learn intonations in words. For example, if you go for the word of the name of my channel is Arepas for dinner, right? So the word arepas is arepas. It's not arepas or arepas. He couldn't tell the difference. That much they don't have intonation that he couldn't hear the difference in between arepas, and arepas because they do not have that. They do have accents, and those accents are only to make the letter longer. Like if I say dobrý, but it's not like dobrý. It's just like E, it makes the E longer, but it's flat. It's completely flat. I remember it took my attention so much when I was watching this YouTuber called Petra Lovely Hair. I might introduce a little bit of her segment here so you can hear her talking.
Ještě i nějaký vlog takhle z domova, abyste si to mohli všechno prohlídnout, co tady vytváříme.
So it's pretty flat. And then they don't make spaces in between the words. So I know I speak like that in English. I speak like that in Spanish. I'm terrible. I speak so fast and I try to not speak so fast. But I can't. I'm trying. Please don't unsubscribe because of my fast speaking. But yeah, I know I speak fast. But Czechs speak even faster. There's no spaces in between words. I remember learning this phrase that was like "Chtěla bych něco kapiti," and they said so fast. Instead of saying "Chtěla bych něco kapiti," it was like "Chtěla bych něco kapiti." I was like, I can never say that. Not even now, there's no separation. And then when you want to say that you are like in the restaurant, you say like v restauraci. But they would say v restauraci, like one word. That's so hard. And I think those are like the 5 things why Czech is such a hard language to learn. And then I'm going to introduce here a small 6 that is very expensive. I guess because there's not such a huge demand to learn it, you don't have that many schools or institutes teaching. And when you want to get like a big intensive program, maybe 4 hours a day, 5 days a week, trying to actually learn the language, to work in the language or something, you can pay like $2,000. That's like 42,000 crowns, a little bit more. Very, very, very expensive. And you might say, $2,000 is not that much. Yeah, it's $2,000 for 4 months of teaching. And taking consideration that the average salary here after taxes is below the $1,000. So think of an expat that is coming with 34,000 Czech crowns, and after, I'm going to put the conversion here, and after taxes, he has like 26,000. I mean, he will have to like save for 2 years to pay a language lesson like that. So yeah, I consider it a very expensive language to learn. And don't tell me that's the same everywhere, because I've seen how much they charge for different classes around the world. And in US to learn Spanish, you pay like half that. And if you're in US to learn English, you pay like a quarter of that. So take that in consideration. And now let's go to some happy place, and is curiosities about the Czech language. So some curiosities that I found in the Czech language are many, but I remember, let's start by the biggest one. I remember having this conversation with my Czech mother-in-law. She doesn't speak much English. She can understand, but she can't speak that much. And we were having this conversation, and while I was talking, she kept saying no, no, no. And I was like, gosh, okay. And in some point she said, no, 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 fuck you. And I was like, what? Well, actually, what she was saying was, yeah, yeah, yeah. Or really? Because no is like a aha, or yeah. And fuck you, or I cannot pronounce it really, like fuck you, fuck you. It means really. So it doesn't mean fuck you, it means really. And then you have pusa, doesn't mean what you think, you perv. It means mouth. And then you have dik, or written like dik. That is actually a diminutive of Gikuyu, and it pretty much means thank you or thanks, like a slang way or like a not very polite way of saying thanks. Then my favorite word of Czech is, I mean, I have two, so I'm gonna say both. Bruce Lee. Bruce Lee is to roller skate, but it literally sounds like Bruce Lee to me, so I find that super funny. And the second one is pochitach or napochitachi, that is the computer or on the computer. And I find that very amusing. I love the word pochitachi. I love it. Pan means sir, but in Spanish, pan means bread. Pez means dog, but in Spanish, pez means fish. So they call their dog as a fish. But don't worry about it, because you won't hear the word pez that often, because usually it's referred as to psa. Because you remember the 7 words per word that I told you? Yeah, pez is a word, and one of the declinations is psa. Crazy. Then the expression for oh my god is Jesus Maria, which means Jesus Mary, which is it's funny. They're not Catholic or Christians here, so I don't think they have like any religious issue with saying Jesus Christ or Jesus Maria. 2 words that are the same in Czech as in Spanish. Pantuflas. In Czech is pantufles. It means slippers to be at home, which is very funny because it's the same word that we use in Venezuela always. And then semaforo. That for us is semáforo, but I told you they don't have so for us it's semáforo, for them it's semáforo. It means traffic light, and it's the same in Spanish and in Czech, and we have no idea why. And then the final thing, just like a funny small spot here, is that when you are in Czech Republic, one of the first things that you would learn for sure is ukončete prosím. And that's because every time the metro opens the doors, I guess no, every time the metro closes the doors, they said, ukončete prosím a výstup a nástup. That means please finish entering or exiting the wagon. But it says it so often, and the metro stations are so close to each other that you could hear it 40 times in a day easy. So I remember my parents came to visit only for like a week, and my dad got stuck with the word ukončete, and now he says it all the time, and that's just a thing. It just means quit, but it sounds funny. So that was it, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and don't forget to subscribe. I hope you really like this. In every video I just talk about Czech Republic. I talk about how life is in here. I make vlogs about my life in here. So if you think you're gonna be interested in that, subscribe to my channel and like this video. You can share it as well if you want. And that's my input on Czech language. I might be wrong, I might be right. It's just my opinion. I'm just talking for me. But that's how I see it, and hopefully one day I'll be able to speak. I'm not gonna speak here. If you wanna hear me speak in Czech, go to my TikTok, or don't go because it's hideous. It's the same name as the channel, it's Arepas for dinner. And that's it. See you next Tuesday with a new video. Bye!